How to Stop Being Triggered, a talk with Unmani.
So today's theme for this open webinar is how to stop being triggered. And I feel that this is a relevant theme for everybody because we all have our trigger points, right? We all, for whatever reason, we all have those points where if someone says something or does something, or some circumstances come together in a certain configuration, we get triggered into a reaction, and we feel perhaps a very strong emotional response. We might respond in words or actions. There might be a mental story playing out. And in that moment, we can't see clearly. It's like we're blinded. We're blinded by a past situation, a past experience that is apparently replaying itself in that moment. So in that moment, we can't experience life freshly. We can't meet the reality of life just the way it is. We meet whatever dream state we're in. And it's as if we're replaying the old story when at some point in the past, perhaps, we felt threatened. We felt unsafe. We felt hurt. Or for whatever reason, we felt that we had to protect ourselves, defend ourselves. Or we had to respond in a certain way that would ensure our survival, or at least what was perceived as a matter of survival. Because in those moments, it does feel like a matter of life or death. For some reason, it feels like this is of the highest value and importance. If you do this to me, then I'm going to really respond. There seems no other option in those moments, right? And of course, when we're on the spiritual path, we have ideas perhaps that one day we'll be free from all these trigger points. Because when we wake up after we've been triggered, or after we have this kind of response, and perhaps we've done or said something that we know wasn't coming from some true place, perhaps we feel guilty. We feel like we've done something wrong. We should have behaved in a more enlightened way. Perhaps it's caused some trouble, some friction, some confrontation with others. It's provoked a situation that perhaps you don't really intend to, or you didn't mean to. It's created a boundary or barrier that you don't even want. So when you wake up out of that dream state, you see it more clearly, but by then it's too late. So on this spiritual path, we can be quite hard on ourselves, right? Believing that we should have or we could have done something different. And I feel that these ideas of how we should have or could have behaved differently are often what causes a lot of the trouble, or certainly adds to the trouble as we beat ourselves up. Because in the moment where we are responding out of an old reaction, there is no other option. In that moment, there is the child here. Right? The child that was once in a situation where it needed to respond in that way. And here is the child again. It's come up to respond, to protect, to respond in a way that you feel that there's no other option. It feels, he feels that way. There's an overwhelming emotional and physical response. And in that moment, there's no clarity. There's no seeing that this is not true. So there's no option where you could do something different. So this beating yourself up that happens afterwards is, in a way, the spiritual identity that comes in, as if there was some kind of more spiritual option available in that moment. And there wasn't. If there was, you would have acted in that way, right? So the best that we can do is to embrace that child, to acknowledge that that child was needed. Even if, as the adult now, you can see that the truth of that particular situation didn't need that kind of strong response. You can see it, but still this child is here. And this child will continue to shout and scream and be triggered as long as it's not being heard and not being embraced and not being fully allowed to be here, just the way it is. So whenever you are so-called triggered, or this child starts to shout and scream and respond in that way, as soon as you can, or remember, or as soon as there's any kind of clarity that comes in, bring the attention to the sensations. Feel this child. Feel this trigger, this response. It might be very uncomfortable. Most likely it is. And perhaps there's even going to be some resistance to bringing the attention to the sensations, because that's the cloud, that's the dream world we're often in those states. We're so caught up in the story of what you did to me, or what is happening, or what is needed in that moment, that we can see that actually if we bring the attention to the physical sensations, we have to let go of the story. And in that moment, we don't want to. We're so believing in it. So it can take a lot of courage, or at least an opening that might not even be there until it is. And when it is, when there's that even a split second of an opening, bring the attention to the sensations. Acknowledge this child. Yes. Yes, I feel this pain, this fear. I feel threatened. I don't know how to be in this situation and I'm scared. Or I'm really longing to be met and I don't feel heard, I don't feel seen, or whatever it is, whatever this child is longing for or screaming about. Not expecting this child to be any different. No one else can honor this experience in the way that you can for yourself. You'll never be able to fix all these trigger points by being somehow super enlightened or something, or rising above it, or denying it, or pushing it away. All of these things, they don't work. Or if they do, they work temporarily. And once again, life brings a situation where you're triggered again. It seems that the only way is to embrace all these little children that are here and probably will always be here. You might always be triggered in one way or another. But what seems to happen over time, the more you embrace and acknowledge and accept and feel these little children that are here in you, the more you see that it's not about the thought story. It's about the sensation. It's about feeling. So then you can meet them as soon as they start. As soon as that little child starts to cry, immediately you can bring your attention to the sensation. And you're not blinded anymore. You see, here's that little child. And your priority is always to meet that one here. It's never about the situation or the other. It's always about meeting what's here. And every time you might be triggered, you see this as a wonderful opportunity to meet yourself, just the way this experience is right now. No matter how it feels, no matter how uncomfortable it might be, it's this invitation to be here now with whatever is here, with this child that is longing to be met. And you, as life itself, freedom itself, wholeness itself, you are the ultimate parent. You can embrace all of these little children that arise in you. This human will never be perfectly healed. It will always be imperfect. Often on the spiritual path, we have some idea that we need to keep healing and fixing this human. Let this human be broken forever. This is the freedom. Who you really are is always pristine. always unconditional love, loving whatever is touched here in this human.